They made us smile, they taught us life's simple lessons, and they turned Mayberry into a place that felt like home. For 8 unforgettable seasons, these actors breathed life into the Andy Griffith Show, becoming beloved figures on American television. But behind the scenes, their real journeys were marked by triumph, hardship, and ultimately, final goodbyes. Let's look back at 12 cherished stars from the Andy Griffith Show who have passed on and honor the legacies they left behind. Jim Nabors as Gomer Pyle. Jim Nabors, born on June 12, 1930 in Sylacauga, Alabama, was the youngest of 3 children in a working-class family. His father, Fred Nabors, was a police officer, while his mother, Mavis, worked at a local office. Growing up in a small southern town, Jim was a quiet child who found comfort in music. He sang in his church choir and played the clarinet in his high school band. But few could have guessed that this soft-spoken boy would one day become one of television's most beloved stars. After earning a degree in business administration from the University of Alabama, Jim moved west to Los Angeles, where he found work as a film cutter at NBC. It was during this time that he began performing at The Horn, a small Santa Monica nightclub. His blend of gentle humor and surprising musical talent caught the eye of comedian Bill Dana, who helped him land an audition for The Steve Allen Show. But it was Andy Griffith who would change Jim's life forever. In 1962, Griffith spotted Nabors' act and invited him to join the Andy Griffith Show as Gomer Pyle, a kind-hearted, naive gas station attendant. With his wide-eyed innocence, slow southern drawl, and trademark exclamation, "Shazam!" Gomer quickly became a fan favorite. Jim's portrayal was so genuine and endearing that the character soon took on a life of its own. Just 2 years after his debut, Gomer earned his own spin-off, Gomer Pyle, USMC, which followed his misadventures as a Marine recruit under the watchful eye of the no-nonsense Sergeant Carter. The series was a massive hit, running for 5 successful seasons from 1964 to 1969 and attracting millions of loyal viewers each week. But Jim Nabors was much more than just Gomer. His deep, rich baritone voice, so unexpected in contrast to his character's high-pitched drawl, left audiences spellbound. He became a frequent guest on The Carol Burnett Show, where his musical numbers often stole the spotlight. His albums of romantic ballads and standards sold millions, and he was in high demand as a concert performer. Beginning in 1972, Jim sang Back Home Again in Indiana at the Indianapolis 500, a tradition he maintained for over 30 years, endearing him to generations of race fans. In his personal life, Jim was known for his kindness, generosity, and humility. Despite his fame, he kept his private life largely out of the spotlight. He shared nearly 4 decades with his partner, Stan Cadwallader, whom he married in 2013, shortly after same-sex marriage became legal in Hawaii. Together, they built a quiet life in Honolulu, where Jim cultivated macadamia nuts on his farm and enjoyed simple pleasures far removed from Hollywood's glare. Health challenges began to shadow Jim's later years. In 1994, he underwent a liver transplant after contracting hepatitis B, a condition he believed he had acquired years earlier during a trip to India. He spoke openly about his gratitude to the donor's family and became a vocal advocate for organ donation. Though he continued to perform for a time, complications from the transplant and other illnesses gradually slowed him down. On November 30th, 2017, Jim Nabors passed away at the age of 87 in his Honolulu home, surrounded by loved ones. The cause was organ failure, but those who knew him best said he never lost his gentle spirit or warm smile. His legacy lives on, not just in the laughter he brought as Gomer Pyle, but in the music and kindness that defined him as a person. Frances Bavier as Aunt B. Frances Bavier was born on December 14, 1902, in New York City, the only child of Charles and Mary Bavier. Her father worked as a stationary engineer, while her mother encouraged her artistic talents. Frances attended Columbia University and later studied acting at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Early on, she seemed destined for a career in education, having briefly taught school before deciding to follow her passion for the stage. Frances built a solid foundation on Broadway throughout the 1920s and 30s, earning a reputation as a reliable and talented actress. She appeared in numerous productions, including On Borrowed Time and Point of No Return. Her transition to Hollywood came in the 1940s, where she showcased her versatility in films like The Day the Earth Stood Still, playing Mrs. Barley, and Bend of the River alongside James Stewart. She was adept at both drama and comedy, but it was television that would make her a household name. In 1960, at 58, Frances accepted the role of Aunt Bee on The Andy Griffith Show. From her first appearance in the premiere episode, she became an indispensable part of Mayberry. As Aunt Bee, she was warm, caring, and just firm enough to keep Andy and Opie grounded. Her character's home cooking, gentle scolding, and occasional meddling felt familiar to millions of viewers who saw their own family members reflected in her. Aunt Bee wasn't just a homemaker. She was the heart of the Taylor household, often teaching subtle life lessons through her interactions. Frances's performance earned her an Emmy Award in 1967 for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, a recognition of the depth she brought to the role. After The Andy Griffith Show ended and following her appearances on Mayberry RFD, Frances quietly retired in 1972. She chose to settle far from the bustling world of Hollywood, buying a modest house in Siler City, North Carolina. Locals often saw her around town, where she lived simply with her beloved cats and enjoyed gardening. Though she valued her privacy, she occasionally expressed gratitude for the affection fans continued to show for Aunt Bee. Frances's final years were marked by health challenges. She battled heart disease and was diagnosed with breast cancer, which she faced with characteristic dignity. On December 6, 1989, at the age of 86, she passed away at her Siler City home from heart failure. In her will, she left a generous portion of her estate to local charities, including the Siler City Police Department and animal welfare groups, reflecting her deep care for the community that had welcomed her so kindly. George Lindsay as Goober Pyle. George Lindsay, born December 17, 1928, in the small town of Fairfield, Alabama, grew up during the Great Depression in a working-class family. Raised by his mother, Alice, after his father left when George was young, he developed a love of storytelling, humor, and performance as a way to brighten the lives of those around him. His natural charm and down-home wit would one day make him famous, but early on, life was far from easy. George attended Walker Junior College and later Florence State Teachers College, now the University of North Alabama, where he majored in biological sciences and physical education. After college, he taught for a short time and served in the United States Air Force, but it was acting that called to him. With determination, he enrolled at the American Theater Wing in New York City to study drama, working odd jobs to pay his way. His southern drawl, natural comedic timing, and likable presence soon won him roles in television and on stage. In 1964, at age 35, George Lindsay got the break that would define his career when he stepped into Mayberry as Goober Pyle, the bumbling but warm-hearted mechanic with the perpetual grin and signature whoopee cap. Originally hired as a replacement for Jim Nabors' Gomer Pyle after Nabors left for his own spin-off series, George quickly made Goober his own. Whether imitating Cary Grant, misinterpreting simple tasks, or bringing his unique brand of good-natured mayhem to the service station, Goober captured the hearts of fans. His character became a staple of The Andy Griffith Show and later Mayberry RFD. But George's talents extended far beyond Mayberry. From 1971 until 1993, he was a regular on Hee Haw, where his country humor and storytelling found an even larger audience. He also lent his voice to animated films for Walt Disney Studios, including The Aristocats and Robin Hood, adding to his long list of credits. What truly set George apart, though, was his heart. Deeply committed to helping others, he used his fame for good. For over 2 decades, he hosted the George Lindsay Celebrity Weekend and golf tournament in Montgomery, Alabama, raising millions of dollars for the Alabama Special Olympics and the George Lindsay UNA Film Festival, which nurtured young talent in his home state. His dedication earned him numerous humanitarian awards, and in 1995, he was inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame for his charitable work. In his personal life, George married Joyanne Herbert in 1955, and they had 2 children, Camden and George Jr. Although the couple divorced in 1991, they remained respectful of each other, and George continued to cherish his role as a father and grandfather. He often spoke of his pride in his family and found joy in quieter moments away from the spotlight. Sadly, like many of his Mayberry co-stars, George faced serious health issues later in life. He battled heart disease and other complications, which slowed him down but never dimmed his spirit. On May 6, 2012, at the age of 83, George passed away in Nashville, Tennessee, surrounded by loved ones. His passing was mourned by fans across generations who had grown up laughing at Goober's antics and inspired by the generosity of the man behind the cap, Don Knotts as Barney Fife. Don Knotts, born July 21, 1924 in Morgantown, West Virginia, was the youngest of 4 sons in a family that struggled through the hardships of the Great Depression. His father, who battled mental illness, died when Don was just 13, leaving his mother to raise the family. From these humble and often difficult beginnings, Don developed his trademark blend of nervous energy and quick wit, qualities that would later define his greatest roles. Don's early interest in performing led him to study at West Virginia University, though his education was interrupted by his service in the U.S. Army during World War II, where he entertained troops as part of a traveling show. After the war, he pursued acting full-time, working in radio and on stage before landing a recurring role on The Steve Allen Show in the 1950s. In 1960, at 36, Don joined The Andy Griffith Show as Deputy Barney Fife, the overzealous, bumbling sidekick to Sheriff Andy Taylor. His performance was nothing short of television magic, with impeccable timing, exaggerated expressions, and a gift for physical comedy. Don turned Barney into one of TV's most beloved characters. He won 5 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, a record that still stands for a comedic sidekick. Don's career flourished beyond Mayberry, with starring roles in films like The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, The Incredible Mr. Limpet, and The Apple Dumpling Gang. Off-screen, Don married 3 times and found happiness in his final marriage to actress Frances Yarborough. In his later years, he faced health struggles, including lung disease and declining vision, but he never lost his humor or warmth. On February 24, 2006, at age 81, Don Knotts passed away in Los Angeles from complications of pneumonia, leaving behind a legacy of laughter that continues to brighten hearts today. Betty Lynn as Thelma Lou. Betty Lynn, born August 29, 1926 in Kansas City, Missouri, grew up during the Great Depression, raised primarily by her mother, who was an accomplished opera singer. From an early age, Betty was drawn to performing. She studied at the Kansas City Conservatory of Music and began singing in supper clubs as a teenager, using her talents to help support her family. By the age of 18, she was touring with the USO during World War II, performing for American troops stationed in the Pacific, sometimes close enough to the front lines that she could hear gunfire in the distance. Betty's courage and devotion to lifting the spirits of servicemen endeared her to many. After the war, Betty transitioned to Hollywood, where she appeared in a string of films throughout the late 1940s and 1950s. Notable credits include Cheaper by the Dozen, June Bride, and Mother is a Freshman. She was often cast as the sweet, wholesome young woman, a reflection of her natural warmth both on and off the screen. In 1961, at age 35, Betty stepped into the role that would define her career, Thelma Lou, Barney Fife's kind-hearted and patient girlfriend on The Andy Griffith Show. Her gentle presence provided a perfect counterbalance to Barney's high-strung antics, and her scenes with Don Knotts brought a tender charm to the series. Although she appeared in only 26 episodes, Thelma Lou became one of Mayberry's most beloved characters. In later years, Betty chose to move to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's hometown, where she remained close to the legacy of the show and its devoted fans. She lived simply, never marrying, and cherished her independence and the deep friendships she maintained. On October 16, 2021, Betty passed away peacefully at the age of 95 from natural causes. She is remembered not only for Thelma Lou's sweet smile, but for the grace, kindness, and dignity she embodied throughout her life. Howard McNear as Floyd Lawson. Howard McNear, born on January 27, 1905, in Denver, Colorado, was a gifted character actor whose gentle voice and comedic timing made him a familiar presence in American entertainment long before he became Mayberry's beloved barber. Howard developed his love for acting early, studying drama, and performing on stage before transitioning to radio in the 1930s. His work in radio made him a household name. He was especially recognized as the voice of Doc Adams on the popular radio version of Gunsmoke, a role he held for nearly a decade. In 1960, at age 55, Howard joined The Andy Griffith Show as Floyd Lawson, the town's cheerful but absent-minded barber. With his meandering conversations, harmless gossip, and endearing quirks, Floyd quickly became one of Mayberry's most lovable characters. His shop wasn't just where men came for a haircut. It was a place for laughs, friendly advice, and the gentle rhythm of small-town life. Howard's portrayal added warmth and humor, making Floyd feel like an old friend to viewers across America. But tragedy struck in 1963 when Howard suffered a debilitating stroke that left him partially paralyzed on his left side. Many actors might have retired, but Howard's determination and love for his craft brought him back to The Andy Griffith Show. The production team went to great lengths to accommodate him, staging his scenes so he could be seated or positioned to mask his disability. His courage and professionalism deeply impressed his co-stars, including Andy Griffith, who admired Howard's resilience. Sadly, despite his brave return, Howard's health continued to decline. On January 3, 1969, at the age of 63, he passed away in San Fernando Valley, California. To this day, he is remembered fondly for the quiet humor, kindness, and charm he brought to both his role as Floyd and his life beyond the screen. Annetta Corsott as Helen Crump. Annetta Corsott, born November 3, 1933, in Hutchinson, Kansas, was a talented and dedicated actress who brought intelligence, dignity, and warmth to every role she played. Raised in a close-knit Midwestern family, Annetta displayed a passion for the arts from an early age. After high school, she studied drama at Northwestern University, where she refined her craft before making her way to Hollywood. Annetta's screen career began in the late 1950s with roles that hinted at her versatility. One of her earliest and most memorable appearances was in the cult classic The Blob, where she starred alongside Steve McQueen. But it was in 1963, at the age of 30, that she found the role that would define her career, Helen Crump on The Andy Griffith Show. Originally introduced as Opie's new schoolteacher, Helen quickly became a central figure in Mayberry, and eventually, Andy Taylor's steady love interest. With her calm intelligence and quiet strength, Helen provided a perfect complement to Andy's folksy wisdom. Annetta's performance gave Mayberry a sense of depth and authenticity. Unlike many sitcom sweethearts of the era, Helen was portrayed as a capable, independent woman with her own opinions and convictions. Fans admired her not just for her beauty, but for the gentle authority she brought to her classroom and her relationships. Despite her success, Annetta remained intensely private. She never married or had children, and preferred to let her work speak for itself. Beyond The Andy Griffith Show, she continued to act in television, including a recurring role on Matlock, reuniting her with Andy Griffith once more. In her later years, Annetta faced a battle with lung cancer, which she fought with quiet courage. On November 6, 1995, at just 62, she passed away at her home in Studio City, California. She is remembered fondly for the grace, intelligence, and heart she brought to every role, and especially for her enduring place in Mayberry's legacy. Hal Smith as Otis Campbell. Hal Smith, born August 24, 1916, in Petoskey, Michigan, was a versatile performer whose talents spanned radio, television, film, and animation. Raised in Messina, New York, Hal showed an early interest in performance, entertaining his classmates with impressions and humorous skits. After graduating high school, he worked as a disc jockey and announcer, honing his vocal skills before serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps during World War II. After the war, Hal moved to Hollywood, where his booming, expressive voice and affable presence made him a natural fit for a wide range of roles. In 1960, at the age of 44, he joined The Andy Griffith Show as Otis Campbell, the friendly, well-meaning town drunk of Mayberry. Otis's habit of voluntarily locking himself in the jail cell after a night of drinking became one of the show's enduring comic routines. Hal's impeccable timing and ability to play Otis as harmless and lovable rather than pitiful turned the character into a fan favorite. Yet Hal's talents extended far beyond Mayberry. He was one of the most prolific voice actors of his time, bringing life to countless animated characters. Among his most iconic roles was Owl in Disney's Winnie the Pooh franchise, where his warm, thoughtful tone became instantly recognizable to children around the world. He also voiced characters in The Flintstones, The Jetsons, Davy and Goliath, and DuckTales, among many others. In real life, Hal was nothing like Otis. He lived a steady, devoted life with his wife, Vivian Sisson, whom he married in 1936. The couple remained together for over 50 years, until Vivian's passing in 1987. Hal continued working in voice acting into his later years, beloved by colleagues for his professionalism and kindness. On January 28, 1994, Hal Smith died of a heart attack at the age of 77 in Santa Monica, California. His voice and the joy he brought to audiences live on, spanning generations. Jack Dodson as Howard Sprague. Jack Dodson, born May 16, 1931 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was a skilled actor whose subtle, thoughtful performances brought heart and humanity to every role he played. Before he found his way to television screens across America, Jack built his craft on the stage. A graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, known for its prestigious drama program, he refined his talents in regional theater and on Broadway, where his ability to convey quiet complexity drew the attention of directors and casting agents. In 1966, at the age of 34, Jack joined The Andy Griffith Show as Howard Sprague, the earnest, somewhat awkward county clerk of Mayberry. With his neatly pressed suits, polite manners, and occasional social missteps, Howard was a character many could relate to, someone trying his best to fit in and find his place in a small, tight-knit community. Jack's understated humor and gentle approach made Howard a memorable addition to Mayberry's beloved cast of characters. He brought a depth to Howard that turned what could have been a background role into a source of warmth and light comedy. Beyond his time in Mayberry, Jack's career flourished in both film and television. He appeared in Sam Peckinpah's The Getaway, where he held his own alongside Steve McQueen and Ali MacGraw. His television credits included guest roles on Barney Miller, Happy Days, Archie Bunker's Place, and Matlock, among others. Jack was respected by his peers for his professionalism, humility, and dedication to his craft. Off-screen, Jack found stability and joy in his personal life. He was married to Mary Dodson, a pioneering television art director from 1959 until his passing. Together, they raised 2 children and shared nearly 4 decades of marriage. In his later years, Jack faced a private battle with cancer, which he confronted with dignity and grace. On September 16, 1994, at the age of 63, he passed away in Los Angeles, leaving behind a legacy of kindness, humor, and quiet strength that continues to be appreciated by fans and colleagues alike. Hope Summers as Clara Edwards. Hope Summers, born June 7, 1902, in Mattoon, Illinois, became Clara Edwards at 59, the cheerful neighbor who always had a hand in Mayberry's activities. Her performances added warmth and a sense of community spirit that defined the town. Beyond Mayberry, Hope had standout roles in films like Rosemary's Baby. Her personal life was one of resilience. After losing her husband, she raised 2 children and stayed dedicated to acting. On June 22, 1979, at 77, she died of heart failure, her presence still felt in the show's enduring sense of togetherness. Howard Morris as Ernest T. Bass. Howard Morris, born September 4, 1919 in New York City, joined the show in 1963 at 46, bringing Ernest T. Bass to life with unmatched energy and chaos. His mischievous antics turned the character into a cult favorite, despite limited appearances. Off-screen, Howard thrived as a director and voice actor in hits like The Flintstones. Howard's personal journey included 2 marriages and 3 children, and his later years were marked by heart and lung issues. On May 21, 2005, he died at 85 in Los Angeles from heart failure, but his wild spirit remains unforgettable. Andy Griffith as Andy Taylor. Andy Griffith, born June 1, 1926 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, became America's favorite sheriff at 34, leading Mayberry with wisdom and humor. His portrayal of Andy Taylor offered life lessons with every episode. Beyond Mayberry, Andy starred in Matlock and films like A Face in the Crowd, proving his dramatic range. Andy's personal life included 3 marriages, the last with Cindy Knight, who stayed by his side through health challenges, including Guillain-Barré syndrome, in 1983. On July 3, 2012, at 86, he died from a heart attack at his coastal home, his legacy firmly rooted in television history. Jack Burns as Warren Ferguson. Jack Burns, born November 15, 1933, in Boston, Massachusetts, took on the difficult task of following Don Knotts in 1965 at 33. Though his stint as Deputy Warren Ferguson was short, his career soared elsewhere, as George Carlin's comedy partner and a writer for The Muppet Show. Jack shared a creative and fulfilling life with his wife Nancy and their son. Quiet about his health, he died of respiratory failure on January 27, 2020, at 86. Remembered for his wit and originality. Parley Bear as Mayor Roy Stoner. Parley Bear, born August 5, 1914 in Omaha, Nebraska, was 48 when he portrayed the firm and upright Mayor Roy Stoner in 1962. His commanding presence added a new tone to Mayberry's town politics. Beyond the show, Parley's voice became iconic across radio and television. Married to Ernestine Clark for over 50 years, Parley balanced a rich career and family life. After suffering a stroke in 1997, his health declined, and on November 22, 2002, he passed away at 88, his voice and strength forever part of entertainment history. Joanna Moore as Peggy McMillan. Joanna Moore, born November 10, 1934, in Parrott, Georgia, portrayed Nurse Peggy McMillan at 29, briefly adding romance to Andy's life in 1962. Her beauty and talent had already graced films like Touch of Evil. Joanna's life off-screen was marked by both fame and struggle. Her marriage to Ryan O'Neal ended amid personal turmoil, and she battled addiction and lung cancer in later years. On November 22, 1997, at 63, she passed away in California, her early promise always remembered. Which of these Mayberry stars holds a special place in your memories? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this tribute, please like, share, and subscribe for more journeys through classic television history.